Welcome to the Happier Life Project, the official podcast from the award-winning mental health and wellness app, My Possible Self. Hosted by broadcaster and journalist Gabby Sanderson.
Hello, I'm Gabby. Welcome. Today we're looking at a topic that pops up every year as the weather cools and the festive period approaches. Cuffing season. Now, this isn't just a trendy term for dating. It's a fascinating social and psychological phenomenon. Why do so many of us suddenly crave connection during the darker months? How does loneliness, attachment needs, and seasonal mood shifts influence who we seek out and why? To help us get to the root of all this, I'm joined by Dr. Marianne Trent, a qualified clinical psychologist specialising in grief and trauma. She's also author of The Grief Collective, plus other books, and is host of the award-winning The Aspiring Psychology Podcast. Together, we explore how societal pressures can amplify feelings of isolation during the holidays, why loneliness feels even more intense in winter, especially at Christmas time, and how being with the wrong person can sometimes feel even lonelier than being single. Today, we're digging into not just why cuffing season exists, but how to navigate it in a way that protects your emotional well-being, honours your self-worth, and supports genuine, healthy connections, whether you're single, partnered, or somewhere in between. So, ready to find a healthier, happier you? Let's dive in. Welcome, Dr. Marianne Trent, to the Happier Life Project. When we're talking about cuffing season, that's kind of the overarching theme, but underneath we're looking at connection, loneliness, and seasonal psychology. So it is actually deeper than it first, well, let's be honest, we probably first came to the term on social media. For anybody that isn't aware what cuffing season is, it's the time of year where people want to cozy up. And this is interesting wording. It's the period in late fall and winter where people seek short-term committed relationships to avoid loneliness and have a partner for the colder months. So from a psychological standpoint then, what is cuffing season to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sort of makes a little bit more sense if you understand where the term comes from. So it actually comes from handcuffing yourself to somebody, which I actually don't really like because that's not how I see my relationship. But yeah, I think all human psychology is interesting. And actually, we're thinking about lots of the things we do day to day are coping strategies to get us through trickier bits in our life. And, you know, when we are single, it can make us feel vulnerable, it can make us feel unseen, you know, and especially around kind of this kind of time of year, you might be looking at all the, you know, the husband, the wife, the boyfriend, the girlfriend cards, you know, people are busier. And what I see clinically is people are like, oh, well, I'll just sort of stay home, or I won't do as much, or I'll stay out of people's way because, you know, it's a bit more coupley, or people are already in kind of established patterns. And so I'll kind of be in the way. And I think that doesn't crop up so much in summer where it's all a bit more free flowing. So, yeah, I think it's a definite period of introspection, isn't it? Thinking, who am I? You know, where am I going to get my dopamine from if I'm all by myself?
Yeah. And maybe also as well, like, and I'm saying this because I know a lot of people, and if I'm being quite honest, myself included, where those who are in relationships are struggling. And, you know, I don't know how into astrology you are, but apparently this is all part of a very big shake-up, which is to make way for a lot of new beginnings next year. But I think it's, you know, this amplification around the festive period, it's something to do with the twinkly lights. I don't know. That just seems to heighten emotions. Am I wrong in this respect, or is it just me?
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at the hygge effect of kind of making ourselves cozy and snuggling down and getting the blankets and the lights on and stuff, like it might feel a little bit different if you're doing it by yourself. But also, you know, They do play quite a lot of rom-coms. You know, I saw the advert the other day and it's all the Bridget Jones' Diary, all the holiday, you know, and it's
Hallmark
it's
movies,
this it's the Hollywood narrative that actually we are less if we are not part of something or someone. Yeah, so I think it can feel harder. I mean, I really like the movement of alonement, where actually we lean into developing our sense of self by ourselves, and that we're not just validated by being with someone else. But it is hard. It's hard to be by yourself. And when I've been single, I think it does feel harder at this time of year. And people are so invested in your life as well, aren't they? They will ask you, are you seeing anyone? What's happening? And some of that is living vicariously, because maybe they're a bit like stale in their own relationships, but also people like people in boxes. They like to think that, if Marianne's with someone, I won't need to worry about her, or it makes better sense to them than someone who's maybe perpetually single.
Yeah. I think as well, it's like when there's more get-togethers and you are the only single one at the table, then it can feel just a bit like the odd one out, right? Something I'm like still wrestling with as well is, on one respect, we know that loneliness is like a huge problem for mental health, one of the biggest. We know that we're all social animals and that we thrive in communities. So you've got this on one side of the coin. And then on the other side of the coin, you've got a lot of stuff that's preaching about being happy in yourself, filling your own cup, so that like if you've got somebody else, they're just the cherry on top of the already perfect cake. And I'm like, well, which is it? I guess it's somewhere in between, but I've still not quite figured out how to, straddle between the two.
I think there's nothing lonelier than being in the bed or in the arms of the wrong person, where you're not emotionally safe, where you can't feel seen, where you don't feel like you're being chosen for your uniqueness or your specialness. Maybe you're just being seen as a body, or you're not being seen. I think that's the thing. And loneliness, like you say, I think it shaves years off people. But loneliness isn't just about being in a relationship, is it? There's lots of ways. We've never been more disconnected, have we? And actually, I love the evidence of even doing something like getting together and singing in person as part of a choir or just a group of people actually has a really good impact on your cortisol hormone. So it drops your stress levels. And so loneliness, we don't only need to scratch that itch with sex or with, dinner dates. Like, it can look different, and that might make you feel a bit happier ultimately, because you won't feel like you've been used or taken advantage of, hopefully.
Yeah, such a good point. And then I guess that brings us back to cuffing season, and maybe a cautionary warning is that, like, if there are these people that are, this happens any season, where you've got people that go on apps, for example, because that's the most common way of meeting people now, that are looking for something long term and genuine. But then obviously you've got those that aren't, but that might claim they are. Or maybe it is that, the you'll do kind of thing. And then if that other person is wanting more than you'll do, as you so eloquently said, there's nothing lonelier, because you can feel it when that connection isn't there with that person. And maybe you are in the same bed together or spending the evening together in front of the TV, but it just doesn't quite feel right.
Yeah, I think the cuffing season has lots of overlaps with Sundays. I found Sundays really hard because people often would be having their nice lazy, lie-ins. They might be sharing more selfies. They might be, sharing what they're up to, or, you just feel like I haven't got anyone to go out for a roast with, or I don't want to cook a roast just for myself. So I think it's being with the wrong person is fine, so long as you both know where you're at. You're allowed to enjoy sex. You're allowed to enjoy kissing. You're allowed to enjoy snuggling on the sofa and that kind of closeness. But what it's not okay is if you're trying to make that person think that they are your forever someone. And something I often fell into the trap of is when someone would paint this imaginary picture and they'd say, we can go skiing over Easter. And then you'd be like, oh, good. They're imagining this long-term future. So you make choices and, even do certain things based on this long-term future. And then you very quickly realise, they weren't talking about me. They were talking about themselves and whoever they happened to be dating. And once I worked that out, it became a lot easier to see and to judge someone on their true actions, not by just what they're saying. So it's fine, so long as you're honest with somebody. Actually, we're having fun right now. I don't necessarily know this is going to be forever for either of us, but, maybe that's okay.
Why do you think then that loneliness feels more intense in the colder, darker months?
It's a very good question. I think because there's more time to fill as well, isn't there? So we'll close our curtains at an earlier time and we're opening them at a later time. We're seeing, I'm looking outside my window as I speak to you, it's just about still daylight. And you are seeing less people, especially if you live by yourself. Lots of people that I work with will tell me, I'll get in from work and I will not see or speak to anybody until it's time to open the door and go out again. And if we're working from home as well, that's compounded. And I think it just feels like there's a longer stretch of time to fill. And then you might also have, memories of days gone by when you were in happier relationships, or maybe even people that you've previously enjoyed spending time with that were, if they're not with us anymore. I think it's more a period of reflection. And also if it's kind of end of the year, thinking about the new year that you would want to have, there's lots of opportunities for assessing your priorities, isn't there? And maybe feeling like you're measuring up short on those.
Yeah. So what is the answer there then? Because I would imagine, people that gravitate towards this episode, they might be in that icky kind of feeling where, God, if you work remotely and you live on your, like you said, that is very solitary, and we have lots of distractions now through screens, but nothing compares to being in a room with an actual person. So how do we... Because, you can go and, like people say, go and join a class, and that's okay. That's like a little fix for an hour, isn't it? But then you go home.
Yeah, and I think we probably need to be mindful that we're not being too slanted in the direction of kind of neurotypical people that actually maybe do like to come together, because not everybody feels that way. I was at an event recently and there was lots of gamers there and they were like, this is a lot. Actually I'm usually by myself and that's how I like it. So I think we're all allowed to kind of dip in and out of how social we might be feeling at any one time. There's a term, ambivert, isn't there, that's kind of in the middle of extrovert and introvert, that you kind of will dip in and out of those two. Yeah, ambivert. Okay. And so, to say that we're all better together, that's not always the case. But that said, I find being part of something and feeling like I'm connected to something and someone and being held in mind, those are really important things for me. And I'm a mother as well, and I'm married. I like it when I come home and, my kids go, Mummy! I like that. I like being welcomed. I like being seen. But it is tricky if you are by yourself. And maybe that's not through your choice as well. These might be people that have been in a relationship and it's ended and that was not their choice. And then they've also got grief and loss and trauma to work through as well. So there's a variety of reasons why people are single. Yeah, and it's not always easy, is it?
No. So do you have any advice for how we can kind of honour that grief whilst there's all this joyful... I think it's when you're feeling away and then you've got forced down your throats all the Christmas cheer, it does feel so jarring. I don't know any other time of year where it's just I went to the Christmas lights switch on at the weekend of where I am, and it was sensory overload. So many people... so many lights, so many Christmas songs, it was just, it was a lot. It was a lot. Yeah.
I think it's trying to grieve at Christmas. So my dad died on the 20th of December one year. God, I'm sorry. And so, thank you. And so Christmas music is never quite the same for me now. It has a definite different vibe to it. And I think the same is true of being lonely or kind of heartbroken at this kind of wintry time. It just feels a bit more bleak. I think what we've got really good at trying to do is trying to cheer ourselves up. And actually what I think we need to get a little bit better at is distress tolerance. So knowing and noticing that actually I don't feel I don't feel that good today. I don't feel that happy. And maybe that's okay. You know, we've got these ability to have these different feeling states. So maybe it's okay that we use them from time to time. We cannot all be Tigger from Winnie the Pooh all of the time. Some of us are never Tigger, you know, some of us are Eeyore all the time. And, you know, I think we just need to be like, actually, I'm just recognizing that I'm feeling a bit sad today. I'm feeling a bit withdrawn. I'm feeling a bit forgotten about. Mm-hmm. And just maybe take a breath. We could do it together, Gabby. Just take a little breath in through your nose. Mm-hmm. Hold that for a moment as you're focusing on it in your mind. Take a breath out, breathe out through your mouth. And we're going to do a cycle of 3 of that. So I won't make you do all of them, but if we're doing that, breathe in through the nose, hold that for a moment, breathe out through the mouth, and then 2 more. And we're just holding that idea. So we're not pushing it away. We're actually just noticing that and noticing, oh, I did manage that, actually. I didn't destroy me. You know, I don't think any less of myself. And so I think just honouring those feeling states can be a really important thing to master, even just for 3 breaths. If 3 breaths in and out feels overwhelming, try 1.
Yeah, because I think a lot of us, we do suppress, don't we? Even though we know it's not necessarily best for us, we're like, squash it down, because we're almost scared to feel those kind of painful feelings. And then usually it ends up coming out in some way, shape or form, and can get worse. It's like that fine line, isn't it, between honouring but not wallowing as well.
yeah, we're on that tricky tightrope balance, aren't we? For sure. Yeah, like, and if you feel like you're moving from a state, so a state is something that passes, might be days, weeks, minutes, to something that's becoming more entrenched, and you feel like actually this is really becoming a thing now, then maybe that's time to shake it up and do something differently. But also we can notice that we're having the thoughts, and that's different to being really melded to the thoughts. So if you were to think, for example, oh God, I'm going to be single forever, or oh, I'm so unattractive, no one is ever going to find me attractive, just taking a little separation between that and being like, I'm having the thought that I'm going to be single forever, or I'm having the thought that nobody will ever find me attractive, just makes that a little bit less tentative. And so then you're able to maybe just see the wood for the trees a little bit, because they're not facts.
I mean, you pretty much answered what was going to be my next question, which is about self-worth, because I think this is all, again, ties into, what was the word you used for, it's kind of like the antidote to loneliness, even though you're still alone. What was that kind of like movement you call it? Alonement. Exactly. Like, I suppose it's like that shift in perspective, and maybe the way to do that is to separate yourself and going back to self-worth, it's like you were saying, I'm having the thought of, I'm always going to be single, or nobody will ever pick me, or I think it was
equally well though, you're not picking them, right? Because you probably could date, could date someone, but you don't want to, because you recognize your self-worth. But you're allowed to be with whoever you want to be with, but I also want you to feel nourished and seen, and like you respect yourself, and whatever that looks like, you deserve to feel
like you're the best Christmas
happy.
Present.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for so much like lovely reassurance and advice. And I suppose to close, is there any kind of supportive message that you'd like to give to our listeners that you've not already mentioned to carry into this tricky season, whether they're single or partnered or grieving or somewhere in between?
I think if you're having the sense that you're not enough, I don't think that's your issue. It's likely that someone has made you feel that way. And so this might be a mix of trauma. It might be a mix of grief. It might be actually feeling really disrespected or humiliated. And I'm really sorry that that's how you've been made to feel. But that doesn't mean it's going to be that way forever. And if you do get a sense, if you're like, actually, I do feel humiliated, or I do feel really embarrassed, that's maybe something you can get to lay a bit flatter with therapy as well. If you find that you keep tripping over the same things all of the time, that's not your fault. It's likely that there's a trauma aspect to that, and it doesn't always need to be that way.
Oh, Thank you so much. That's fantastic advice. I've got to say, I've been listening to your podcast, speaking on a podcast. We must point people to yours, the Aspiring Psychology Podcast. You cover a whole diverse range of topics. It's definitely worth checking out. You're also quite active on Instagram, Dr. Marianne
Trent, yeah. So I'm basically everywhere. Everywhere. And my content of the Aspiring Psychologist podcast, it isn't, I've badly named it really. It's not just for people that are interested in early years psychology. It's for anyone that's interested in mental health or anyone who works in mental health or just wants to be a bit more informed about human psychology.
Wonderful, which will be quite a few of our listeners. So We'll put all the links in the episode show notes as well. And you've also got a book.
I've got a few, yeah. The Grief Collective is probably my most generic book. If people are interested in how to find a qualified regulated therapist, there's Talking Heads, and then there's kind of industry specific ones. So if anyone's kind of wondering whether they could manage, whether it would be viable to have a career in mental health if they're autistic or they suspect they might be, there's an autistic anthology, which is really interesting. And then there's a couple of specific books for people interested in a career in psychology, kind of reflective accounts of people in their psychology career.
Amazing. Thank you again for today. I hope you have a lovely Christmas and New Year. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Hello friends, it's Gabby back with you. If you are suffering with your mental health, there is a crisis button on the My Possible Self app, which will signpost you to the correct information for immediate expert advice. Those of you who are listening on one of the podcast platforms, the My Possible Self app is completely free to download. You can access all of the content, so you don't need to worry about it costing you anything. If you found this episode helpful, please do subscribe and leave a review and share it with your friends. And to find and follow us on social media, we are most active on Instagram, and you can find us at My Possible Self. And I've been at Radio Gabby. Until the next one, do take care. Bye for now.